Jordan Victor Carvalho was a 30-year-old from Golden Valley, Arizona. He was a quiet guy who was close to his brother. Just after sunrise on September 1st, 2019, Jordan's grandmother saw him walk away from their home. He liked to go into the desert once in a while. Jordan never returned. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Dentzel, and this is Unfound. If you follow my personal account on Facebook, you know I made a big deal about the Sundance Channel starting 2022 by running a Colombo Marathon. Now you know where you've heard the title of this episode before. I guess I'm showing my age by saying that I've been a huge fan of the show since I first saw it in the late 70s. Although I have to say, the quality of the Colombo episodes dropped off in the early 90s. But Peter Falk and his character are more than just entertainment to me. I've found inspiration from the plots in the work I do for Unfound. In fact, in both presentations I've done at universities so far, I've mentioned the slovenly detective with his raincoat and cigar. Why? Because I believe investigators in the 21st century have gotten too caught up in the science, to the point that they have no skills in reasoning and using their own five senses. Columbo is the opposite of that. And after 235 disappearances, it's clear to me we need more less scientific types if more missing persons cases are going to get solved. Why? Because there usually isn't any science to analyze. Well, in the disappearance of Jordan Carvalho, I hope all of you will find inspiration from Columbo. Because just when you think you have this disappearance figured out, there will be just one more thing. And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Lyonez's website, charlieproject.org. Jordan Carvalho was not just a quiet kid, but grew up to be a quiet man in California. He liked to listen much more than talk. Jordan was close to his brother, moving with him to the state of Washington when the brother joined the Air Force. And despite Jordan's shyness, he had no problem with the opposite sex, having girlfriends in California, Washington, and Arizona while he lived in those areas. However, the girlfriend in Washington caused Jordan anxiety. He believed she had a child that was his, and he wasn't allowed to see the baby. So, come September 1st, 2019, Jordan had been living with his mother and grandparents in Golden Valley, Arizona, since the previous year. He held a variety of jobs and seemed fine, except for the aforementioned problem with the ex-girlfriend. On this day, Jordan took his backpack and left the house to go for a walk. This wasn't unusual. He loved to hike in the surrounding mountains, sometimes being gone for days. Yet Jordan didn't return this time. He was never seen again. A search of the area yielded nothing, and no witnesses ever came forward to say they saw Jordan that day. However, almost a year later, Jordan's backpack was found on ranching land, although the exact location is still unknown to the public. This is the first disappearance of a man Unfound has covered in a while. That's just how things work out sometimes. In addition, Jordan's case seems to be like many male ones we've covered over the past 5 years. But, like always, I ask that you reserve judgment until the very end and try to answer these 3 questions. Number 1, if Jordan's backpack was out there the whole time, why wasn't it seen sooner? Number 2, how does Jordan leaving with his phone and ID affect your opinion on this disappearance? And number 3, how are we to explain a text that came from Jordan's missing phone a year after he went missing? Jordan's family is open to all possibilities and theories. The guest for this episode is Jordan's mother, Anita Stevens. Unfound news. Happy New Year. On New Year's Eve, I released the latest episode of Unfound Now on our YouTube channel. The missing person, Heidi Plank. Yes, her. If you haven't watched it yet, please do so and give the video a thumbs up. Next, looking back at 2021, and even though you know I don't pay attention too much to the numbers, it was a huge year for Unfound. Downloads, shares, likes, views, etc. increased substantially thanks to all of you. I hope we can continue the trend in 2022. Finally, the new true crime TV show Murder Under the Friday Night Lights will be airing its Tom Brown episode on January 11th. It will play on the Discovery Plus channel. A certain podcast host provided the production company with a lot of relevant information. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on iTunes, Pandora, Audible, Podomatic, Spotify, iHeart, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Deezer, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us for the Unfound live show. Watch, ask questions, and give the show a thumbs up. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. I also need to give a huge shout out to all the people who have monetarily contributed using Super Chat during the live show on Wednesday nights. Thank you for watching, and thank you for donating. The email address, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Merchandise, the books at amazon.com in both ebook and print form. Do not forget the reviews. Shirts at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com, or you can track down my assistant Heather in the Facebook group. Playing cards at makeplayingcards.com/sell/Unfound Podcast. The website, theunfoundpodcast.com. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the mother of Jordan Carvalho, Anita Stevens. Anita, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I'm so thankful.
Well, you're very welcome, and the listeners should know we're going to be talking about a little town in Arizona that I know very well. I've been through there many times for work going back to the mid-2000s. So, Anita, it's good to have somebody on from that area to talk about a disappearance there. I'm hoping we can help you out.
Definitely. This place, just not me, but there's a lot of missing people here.
I know, and as the listeners know, right down the road is Kingman, and we covered a disappearance from Kingman, Tyler Stice, back in 2017, so I am familiar with disappearances from that area. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk first a little bit about your family. Of course, we're going to be talking about Jordan today, but do you have any other children besides Jordan?
Yes, he has a brother and he has a sister.
Okay. And how did all of them get along growing up, raising them, and where does Jordan fall in that line?
Jordan was the firstborn, and Anthony was born 1 year and 4 days after him.
Wow. Okay. And then what about
So
your daughter?
My daughter came 3 years after that.
Oh.
And they're all grown. They
Uh-huh.
were lovely family, lovely. I had the best kids.
Okay. All right.
Jordan was a little shy, but other than that, I can't
Okay.
complain.
How did your two sons feel about having birthdays so close together?
Oh, all three of them were born in June.
Oh my. Wow. What's up with that, Anita?
I don't know, September. I hide them September.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So they had no problem with that, celebrating birthdays so close together. They love, kids love to get their attention on that day.
I know, but we kept them innocent. Like, we just made a birthday cake on their day. And it wasn't until they grew up later, like, hey, they're getting presents and having parties. That's when we went to Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay. Hey, and today I'm 51. I still like Chuck E. Cheese. So,
I know.
Okay.
I used to work there.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that. You never told me that. Okay.
Oh, my God.
All right. So you have 3 children. And where were they born? Where did they all get raised? Of course, we're talking about Golden Valley, Arizona today. But where did you raise them? Where were they born? Did different area of the United States or where?
I'm from Rialto, California. Their father's from Colton, California. And it's all Southern California. And that's where we stayed. I mean, Anthony's in the Air Force, still in California. My daughter's the only one that's back east. I don't know, Tennessee. I don't know if that's mid country.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, a lot of big family. Everything was decent.
So you would say, in your opinion, that they were raised in California? That's where you had them and had them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And of course we know that they're very close in age. How was it then that you ended up, and at least Jordan ended up in, we're going to get into Jordan maybe being in another state, but how did you end up then in Arizona?
It was when their father didn't want to live with me anymore because I was really young and he was really old, and he finally left me. So that's when it kind of like went through. I mean, I stuck in there as long as I could with the 3 children and myself, but his parents were really involved, and it takes a family to raise children.
Sure.
And I wasn't really prepared. I'm not the best. I should have never been a parent probably, but I have 3 decent kids, so I did something right.
Right. So you two decided to split up, and then you went to Arizona?
Yeah, the kids stayed. Kids stayed with his parents, and they brought him up. But we were all still involved, and I moved to Arizona like 5 years after that. I've been here like 20 years now.
All right. So you moved there around 2001, 2002. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we've determined that you have these children. Unfortunately, you and their father broke up. Very unfortunately, you go back to Arizona, and that is where you are today. And of course, we're going to be talking about your parents involved in this a little bit too, because you live with them, correct?
Absolutely. I live with my mother.
Okay. Let's now move on to Jordan. How did he feel about being the oldest? You've already stated that he was a little shy. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your son, raising him becoming a young man, school, things like that? Why don't you tell the listeners about that?
He was the cutest thing. Oh, he was so shy. He was so shy, and thank God I had the second one real soon because he needed him. And it was a joy to watch them be like so into each other. Like they never knew. And they never knew that they were missing each other until they were together. And they grew up like that. And then I had the girl 3 years later, and she's still a girl, but she's kind of like a guy, like tomboyish, because she has 2 brothers. They're all close. The Carvalhos are very close-knit family in Colton, California, and good support, good moral things. But I mean, my kids were Jordan especially was really mad. He was hurt that he said I should have took him
Oh.
when I left.
Oh. Yeah.
And I go, if I would have took you, I would have. If I could go back, I would have done it so much differently and never left. But however, they got the right. They had everything. They were taught right. They had structure. They were in sports, and I could have never done that. So I mean, it was an agreement, an arrangement. I came for visits. They call. I talked to them all the time. But when they grew up, then they grew up.
Yeah.
And Anthony went to the Air Force, and that's how Jordan ended up in Washington with his brother,
All right.
in Seattle.
Okay, I want to get into that in a second. I want to talk a little bit more about Jordan's shyness. Where do you think he got that from? Do you think that was genetic or an environmental thing? What do you think?
I don't think so, because I don't have a shy bone in my body.
I can tell.
And I could, and his dad, I mean, he wasn't shy either, but he smoked a lot of weed.
Okay.
Marijuana. So, I mean, maybe he had to do that to make himself, okay. Growing up. And, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe two positives made a negative.
It could be. Both you and your husband are outgoing, and then you have at least one child that's kind of introverted.
Well, yeah, totally introverted.
Okay.
I mean, now looking back, maybe I thought maybe a little touch of autism, but not. I mean,
wow.
He grew. He passed all his school, and he was just super shy.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a little bit about that. Being, I'm just doing this in my head. So around 2001, you go to Arizona. So you would have been approximately 10 years old, something like that. Jordan would have been.
Yeah.
He would have.
I was He was about 10, and it was. I just know that without him having his brother.
Yeah.
He really depended on that relationship to get him through.
Okay.
But I know, I'll stop at that, because I know once we get to the girlfriend situation in his life, they were all not good.
Okay, we'll certainly get into that. So So did he play sports in high school? Did he graduate from high school? And was that in California?
That was it was Colton, where he was in junior high, but then he moved with his aunt in San Diego to finish off high school.
Oh, okay.
And that's when he was on his own, but he got a little girlfriend, first girlfriend, and he was almost going to graduate, and then the family was making too big of a deal for him to deal with, so he dropped out 10 credits short.
Oh, my.
And just didn't show up, and
okay.
I didn't tell anyone what was happening.
Okay.
So right then, that's something like,
yeah.
I mean, you could have just said, no, Mom, no, Grandpa, no, Grandma, but I guess he can't find the words. Talking to him and getting him words out of his mouth are really hard.
Do you think that he was just like that around you? Or, I mean, obviously he had a girlfriend. I mean, obviously he could talk. Women do like to date men who can talk. Was this, was this just something he was shy around just, his family? Or do you think he was a different person around his friends and women? What do you think?
No, I think he was shy around all of them.
Huh.
And didn't know how to communicate because the girlfriends that I know about ended up all the same, and they were frustrated, and he was mad, and they practically all have restraining orders against him at one time or another.
Okay, all right. So he doesn't quite graduate high school, correct?
Right.
Okay.
He makes it up. He does make it. He goes back and makes it up.
Okay. So did he get? So you told me that eventually, though, I guess his younger brother Anthony did graduate high school, and they went to the state of Washington.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and when was that approximately? What year? If you could just pick out an
That was
approximate year.
2000 and, oh gosh.
Take your time.
I don't know, 2000, I don't even know, 18? No. No. 15, 14, no, 12, okay. Because it was when they were 18. He was born in 1989, and that's, so 2020.
No, 2010.
Yeah, 2010.
Okay, we'll go with that. Just an approximate idea for the listeners. That's fine, Anita. If you're off by a year or two, I'm not going to worry about it. I just want to make sure people understand what was going on in Jordan's life, because we need to get to Washington and him, with this woman up there, because I think that's going to play a major part. All right. So, approximately in what year? 2010?
About that.
Okay, so Anthony and Jordan go to Washington because Anthony's in the Air Force.
Anthony graduates. No, they're still in California, and until they both graduate. Jordan's working and doing whatever, and Anthony's finishing at high school, and then he goes right after high school into the Air Force. Right after.
Okay.
And Jordan was trying. He didn't get through. He tried to.
Okay.
But he always followed his brother, basically. But his brother got married, got in the Air Force, got married, had kids, moved to Washington and had kids.
Wow.
And Jordan was right there with him.
Okay. Would you say that Anthony was kind of supporting Jordan, or did Jordan have his own job and going on at the time, or what?
Definitely. Jordan had his own apartment, his own job, his own money, his own life. I mean, there were times when they did live together because, for whatever reason, but that never worked out either.
Yeah.
Because Jordan's a jerk when he gets a little jerky, and his wife was still there.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out. Actually,
I can understand that.
Against the law at one time.
Okay. Well, I lived with one of my brothers for a little while, so I know how that can be. And I also lived with one of my best friends of all time. He's still one of my very best friends. And he was married, and I know how that can be too. So I know how Jordan was feeling probably at the times, so I get it. All right, so he was living there in the state of Washington. Anthony's there. He gets married, has kids. And so let's move up to this. He did meet a woman up there. If we'll just use her first name, if you know her first name, and was this another girlfriend that he had?
Yeah, I don't even know. So
okay.
I was in Washington also when the first baby was born. So all three of us were in Washington for 2 years.
Okay. Wow. 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was good. And he had another girlfriend at that time. Seemed to be normal, seemed to be okay. But again, she's like, why doesn't he say anything? Why doesn't he talk? I'm like, he's shy. I don't know. And here it is, and you have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Or find someone else.
I'm sure the male listeners in this audience are figuring, how could he meet women if he doesn't talk that much? We should all be so fortunate.
Because he's really handsome.
Okay. 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 Well, that certainly helps. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So this particular woman that we're going to be talking about a little later, did you ever meet her? If you don't know her name, that's fine. But did you ever meet her while you were there?
Yeah. No. Okay. I never knew her. I didn't know what. I knew that Anthony moved out of Washington and that he was there by himself with a girlfriend.
Okay.
And Jordan's here's another thing about Jordan. Jordan's very secretive. Very, he doesn't tell people what he's doing with who, or doesn't tell, his friends. He doesn't even say things out loud because of the government.
Okay.
Don't say that like that.
Okay.
So he's got a little issue, many issues, but that was just Jordan. He's a very quiet person too.
Okay. All right, so then he is in Washington for a time by himself with this woman. And then what brought about him moving down to live with you in Golden Valley, Arizona? How did that happen?
Well, I did not know, and he called me very upset and told me that he's been living with Anthony left. I've been here with this lady, this girlfriend, and she's pregnant, Mom. And now she just kicked me out. We just found out she was pregnant a week or so ago, and then she kicked him out. And I go, well, where he's living? He goes, he's living in his car. And I go, well, what are you going to do? You know, well, I don't, obviously she kicked me out for a reason. Maybe it wasn't even yours. Maybe she's not even pregnant. No, she's pregnant. I went with her. I know she is, and I know it's mine. Because he just knows it. Because he, you know, it's hopeful. And so, a couple of days later, like a day or two later, he called me up, really crying. He never cries. Never cries, ever. And he's like, Mom, he stole my truck. She had the truck's gone, stolen while he was at work, and torched.
Why did she do that?
I don't know. I mean, she was a stripper with a drug habit.
Okay.
But I'm not judging anybody for anything. But obviously, there was something wrong with. I mean, you don't just say get pregnant and then kick the person out that you think you got pregnant from, and I don't know. She has a reason. I didn't know her, and so I had to get him all the way from there to here. He got kicked off the buses. He wasn't complying. It was winter, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, I mean, I couldn't just. If I could have just went over there and got him and took him home, sure, but. You know, life isn't always like that.
That's right. You have your own life to live. I'm sure you had a job, and Arizona is not close to Washington.
No,
you know, no, it's not. So, what year was this? What time of year? You said it was cold, so I guess it was the winter of what year?
It was winter of 2018.
All right. So, okay. So not that long ago. Of course, this is a very new disappearance for the listeners. We know he disappeared in 2019. So. He has this girlfriend. She sounds kind of shady. He's at work. Probably would not be the first wife or girlfriend who got mad at her boyfriend or whoever and took his truck and did something like that. Were there any charges or anything filed against her for doing this to this truck?
Well, no, because he didn't prove it with her, and they did recover. They did recover the truck later after he was here already. So,
okay.
But everything, all his belongings, everything, anything and everything, and that's tough for everything.
All right. So she's telling he believes she's pregnant, but then they have this falling out over this, and because of that, you got him to come live with you in Golden Valley, Arizona.
Yep.
Okay. When he gets there, once again, you stated it was the winter of 2018. Living with him for the first time, maybe in a long time, what did you assess of your son? How did you get along? You, of course, live with your parents. How did he get along with your parents? How were things once he moved in?
Well, my mom was happy as clams.
I bet.
Because that's her first grandson.
Sure.
Oh, everything's great, and she's got to baby him and hold him and support him and, you know, let him talk and cry. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, that's great. Okay. And then we babied him. We babied him because that's what he needed. And he was really, you could tell he was really hurt. He was skinny. He looked like he didn't eat, like, on the regular basis.
Yeah.
And just in pain. It's hard to see. It's hard to watch. We all go through it, and I'm glad that I was able to finally get him here.
Yeah.
And you know, love him.
Right.
Love him and get him through this. And then he did get a few jobs here and there, but it just nothing really clicked. And he was just always like constantly thinking about why she did it. What, you know, what's going on? And she's still pregnant. what can I do? And I was dating a lawyer, a legal advocate kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, what do I do? What do you think I should do? She looked at me like, is he asking me this? Because Jordan doesn't talk. I mean, it's hard. But he was like, yeah, tell him. I said, I don't know. So I gave him the advice. You can't go and do anything unless you're just going to sit there and wait till the baby comes.
Right.
That's the only way. You're going to have to wait. And then they're going to call you because I'm sure she's not financially stable enough to have a baby by herself. And you should go from there. But I'm waiting and waiting, and it's making me crazy. I go, well, just get a job then. That's me.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm like, don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself and eat ice cream and then exercise and then.
Yeah, put some meat on your bones.
Yeah.
Right.
So he did. He got over it.
If I can
I don't even know her name.
If I can ask, how much correspondence do you believe he had with her once he moved to Arizona? Did they, I know he had a Facebook account. Did they go and do anything back and forth? Did they text each other, call each other? Were you even privy to any of that?
Yeah, no. Jordan, again, is very secretive. He doesn't want me to know. He doesn't want anybody knowing about his business. And, I mean, unless he, asked me, or I don't try, I said, I know it's just going to bother him, so unless I let him come to me. But he did. He said, Mom, can you call her? She's probably not going to answer. Can you leave a message? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So I did, and she didn't answer, and she never responded. So I know that he was in contact with her. And I know that when he left here, I was sure he was going there, but he knew and I didn't.
Okay, you're talking about the day he disappeared. You believe that he was headed that direction?
Well, of course. I mean, as soon as the baby was born, that's the only thing he talked about for the last 8 months. You know, and that month came and went, and he was still here, and I'm like,
Okay, we'll get into that in a moment. But while you said, he's in Golden Valley, Arizona, and the listeners should know I'm going to be doing a video on YouTube for this so people can see Golden Valley, Arizona. We're going to be talking about some other things that I think the listeners really need to know about that area and kind of diagram it for everybody. But Golden Valley, Arizona is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, a little tough to have a social life, even if he doesn't talk that much, if he is maybe a little introverted. But, I mean, that even makes it maybe a little worse being in an area like that. But he did have some jobs. But you had told me maybe that, if he had kind of gotten over this, that he'd maybe met a woman from Laughlin or Bullhead City, somewhere like that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Well, we were unaware. We didn't know until he called and said, "Can you pick me up in Bullhead?" And I did that twice. He'd be gone for a couple days or a week, but he would always call and say, "Hey, can you come pick me up?" Or, "Hey, I'm here." And that didn't last very long, though.
You said he would be. So he would be gone for days at a time. You wouldn't know where he was.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we figured it out, because he didn't tell us. He didn't say anything. He's very rude and very selfish to not let people worry about him,
right?
And not know.
Yeah.
You can't think people. So.
Okay. Do you have any idea, being that once again you've portrayed him as being very quiet, etc., do you even know how he met this woman in Bullhead City, which I guess is close to Golden Valley, but it's not walking distance? Do you even know how those two met?
She met her on the internet, and she was a local person here from Peach Springs, the American Indian natives. So she was native. She just had got an apartment, and she worked in Laughlin, and that's all I know. Okay.
All right, but he never brought her over to your house or anything?
No way.
Okay.
I mean, it is as soon as it started, I think.
Okay.
No more than 2 weeks or a month max.
Okay. You also told me, and this is of course going to be a topic when we get to the actual disappearance date, that he liked to go hiking. He would go up into the mountains around Kingman and Golden Valley, Arizona area. Did he like to do that? How often did he do that?
Oh, often. I mean, he loves the heat. He likes to. He doesn't. He gets bored and he will take himself and walk straight to the 93 that we live off,
Yeah.
and just walk over and go climb the highest mountain.
Wow.
And he'll be gone for the whole day. He'll be back though. I don't think he's ever spent the night there, but he went there like at least twice a week.
So he would tell you that he was there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think he, when he would go do this, do you think he planned accordingly, like taking water and food and things like that? He knew what he was doing, planning it all out?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
I mean, he's kind of like one of those people that would know what to do to survive.
Okay.
I mean, he's a man too, you know.
Okay. All right, so you like to go hiking, as some of my friends do. I'm not much of a hiker myself, but some of my friends are really.
Hiking is good once you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Without falling down in a sticker bush.
Yeah, it can be dangerous if you don't prepare accordingly. But if you're telling me that he used to go into the mountains in that area and then come back, he must have kind of known what he was doing. Because if you didn't know what you were doing, it'd be very easy to get dehydrated, etc., etc. Okay. While he was living with you, you have to remember he came to live with you. The winter of 2018. So he was living with you for not quite a year before he went missing. Anything that you saw regarding him that worried you? Of course, besides this woman, we'll get back to that. But anything else? Any mental issues? Anything like that?
Yes. I swear it was like he went in a religious direction through my mom and stuff for a minute. Then he went through a friend of mine that he just really like got along with. Her direction, and she does drugs, and he was definitely affected, and he definitely did some drugs.
Okay.
For the first time.
Okay.
I mean, he always smoked weed, but not always. I mean, not like obsessively, but just he was always prone to in that direction. But he hated people that did drugs. He would talk bad about people that did drugs. But again, he was in a situation where he was just not feeling very comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
And I could see where it could happen easy.
Okay.
And when he was on it, he was calling the cops, thinking people were outside.
So he got paranoid.
Yep.
A little bit delusional.
We went through that for like 2 months. I think we went through every little. You know how they have the grief stages. We went through every stage with him.
Yeah.
And
I know about the
what
stages of grief. Sure. Okay, so he's doing some things. He's working. He's living with you and his grandparents. Of course, they're loving having him here. He has this girlfriend for a hot minute over in Laughlin, but that doesn't work out. He's hiking, but he's also struggling, it seems, with some possible mental issues, maybe brought on by something, maybe brought on by drugs. But, I have to ask you, at the time before his disappearance, how worried were you about him?
Well, I mean, okay, so after that, I got a job out of town, and I was working 4 days away and 3 days here.
Okay.
And so that started in June, and it lasted till September. And I was taking care of an elderly friend that was dying, literally. And I spent her last summer with her. And I felt that was very important, where I shouldn't have left. I feel like my other son told me, Mom, maybe this is your chance to get, you're the one that can get Jordan on the right track.
Yeah.
And I just heard that. I went, oh, come on. Me? You can't put that on me. What the heck? Because me and Jordan are a lot of like we barely speak. We've always had a little trouble.
Okay.
I just said he doesn't like me. Like he doesn't like me, Mom, because I don't like you either.
Okay. All right. So, but would you say that you were necessarily worried about him? You know, he's of course 30 years old. He's living with you. He's trying to get back on his feet after coming down there from Washington. You know, were you concerned about him, or you were thinking, you know what, I think, you know, things are going to be okay?
Well, I was concerned because he was like bouncing from one thing to the next thing to another thing, and oh gosh, how do I do this? But I wasn't. He's an adult, and I was here, and so and he's not like I come home and he's like, "Mom, let's talk." You know, I would love to. I would have done that anytime, but he's not going to do that. So me and him are too much alike to like bother each other. But when what was it? What happened? I came back. Oh, he had a plan to go to his grandparents' house in Colton, and he was looking a little tweaked out. And I'm like, son, you're not going to call them and ask them and tell them that you're coming? He goes, no, I got some jobs. You know, I have some jobs to check out, and I'm just going to surprise them. I'm going to be in and out, and I just need you to drop me off at the train station at 2 o'clock in the morning. I go, okay, all right, sure. I did that, and I didn't even go back to work yet, and he was back home. I mean, I went, and I was coming in my bedroom, and just sitting there, and it scared me. Like, hi, Mom. I'm like, oh, what the heck? I just woke you up. I go, what's wrong? How did it go? He goes, oh, you were right, Mom. I should have called. I should have told them, prepared them, and I go, and you kind of got tweaked out, huh? Well, they said I looked bad and stuff. I go, well, don't believe them anyway.
When did that happen? When did that happen?
That happened near probably in August.
All right, so not long before he went missing.
Right.
Yeah, he went missing in September.
That did it. That was the last.
Okay. Do you think that he actually went to California, or do you think that was just a story?
No, he went to California.
Okay.
I saw him on the train. My daughter called me. My other son called me.
Yeah.
His teacher lady called me. Like, how come you sending him over here? I go, I'm not sending him over anywhere.
Okay. All right, so he did do that. All right, so he did do that. Just making sure. One more thing. So he has, seemingly kind of sporadic behavior. Yes, you know, spur of the moment decisions, things going on here. One thing I do have to ask you, once again, before we get into that day of his disappearance, why did he have 3 phones?
I don't know. Well, he had nicer phones, and then he upgraded once to get, you know, just a normal upgrade.
Yeah.
But then he couldn't afford his expensive phone, so he got a cheaper phone.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't all working.
Okay.
But, you know, when people are like a year, in a year you upgrade, I don't even have a cell phone. I don't do that. But, I mean, because he wasn't working regularly to afford an $80 phone or whatever it was. You know, because he tried to work a couple of things and he just quit it, and he was out of money. And my mom was kind of like concerned about, it sounds bad, but he was just not getting it. He was eating nonstop, just like sitting, eating, exercising, and nothing else. And this boy can eat.
Yeah,
so,
I bet. Eat you out of house and home.
Yes, like any grown boy, man.
Yeah. All right, so what you're saying is the reason he had 3 phones is because he had a phone, he got an upgrade, and got to keep the other one.
Yeah.
All right, and that just kind of happened, and I have to say that's kind of the way with me. I'm sure I have 2 of my older cell phones around here somewhere too. But he had 3 of them, but only one was working.
I believe so, but I'm not certain. I mean, even if you don't have service, if you have Wi-Fi, you can still do stuff on each phone.
Sure.
So I'm sure he's very calculated. I mean, he doesn't let people know. I mean, he was
he's
like
very secretive, like you said.
And you know what? That's another thing. I get mad. I get so mad. It's like, you know what? He didn't care. He walked away. He didn't care about how you guys are going to feel, how hurt you will, how worried you are going to be. And I'm sure he didn't expect to get caught up in anything or just disappear. Things happen in the world. But, I mean, I should take the same attitude, like, oh, well, I don't care. He did it to himself. I'm going to get over it. But
No, of course not.
I like that. I could do that if it wasn't my son.
Right. I get it. Let's move to that day. So he has all these things going on, and for that day of the disappearance, and that is September 1st, 2019, we have to establish that you were not in town at that point. You were at this job that you've already talked about, out of town?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right, and so what is the story? It was actually your parents, his grandparents, that said they saw him walk off. What did they say?
My mom actually watched him walk, like he does all the time, to the 93. It was early in the morning. Just had a backpack and, like not any like suitcases or anything. And she just thought, oh, she can go for a hike or I'm sure. But she, after the fact, how long is it because he's been gone, he's been known to go stay for a week, and he's been known to not call us until later. So I think my mom, she called me like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days later, like 5 days, and Jordan hasn't been home for 5 days. I go, well, that's not too,
not too crazy.
Suspicious, so let's give him, a couple more days. You've been calling his phone? Yes, I've been calling his phone, texting him. I go, that makes it worse. Don't stop doing that. And then, so another week went by, and she was still not. And then I go, well, then maybe you should call some persons or report something or ask around. And I go, and I came home, in between my 3 days. But my patient lady really, she died on the 25th.
Oh, my.
And I was back by the 28th. And my mom didn't file the report till like the 30th.
So almost a month later.
I think so.
Okay.
I know. It feels kind of weird saying that maybe we should have done it sooner, but he is 30 years old.
That's right. I agree. And he had a tendency to go off by himself for days at a time. Yeah.
Like a big boy, like a big man that he can, so.
Okay. Let me just ask you a few questions. Being that she saw him walk off, did he say anything to her before he left the house? Did he say he'd be right back?
No. She just saw him walking, leaving the house.
Yeah.
So she just saw his back, and he didn't know she was there. She didn't tell. I didn't know this information until way later.
Okay.
And actually, she said it when the detectives were here, and he goes, why didn't your mom tell us that? And she was standing right there. I go, maybe because she feels so guilty that she's the last person that saw him, and she could have done something if she would have, could have, should have, and thought about what's happening. No one knows the future, and I'm sure it eats at her, and she feels bad, so she didn't say anything.
I guess what I'm saying, Anita, is that she's. So what you're saying is it wasn't like she was sitting at the kitchen table and he walked into the room and walked out the door. It was like she didn't see him until he was already outside.
Right.
Okay. All right. And he was walking. Once again, for the listeners, I'm going to diagram this. He was headed toward Highway 93.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a highway I know very well. And then, as you've already explained, she was thinking, I'll be back. And then even after a few days, well, this is what he does. And it wasn't until the end of September that everybody started thinking, well, this is really, really strange.
Yeah, especially when his brother didn't hear from him, because they always speak. They always call each other. And for him not to call his brother was, that just alone, that thought in my head was like, there's something wrong.
Of course.
Because I know that he was hurt. Jordan was hurt because when he got back from, he was telling me when he got back from California, he goes, Anthony didn't even pick me up from the train station or anything, and everyone was just against me. I'm like, well, did you tell? Are you sure you told him? And then when I talked to Anthony later, he goes, I never even knew.
Wow. Okay.
But, but yeah, I was concerned, and she filed it, and they came out, and they did the report, and nothing really happened until there was a human remains of a body, and for 6 months, nothing, and we kept in contact, and we did everything we could, and we're supposed to, that we're in our means, and the whole family got together, and we were really, really, really concerned.
You said that were of course they were not Jordan's, but you said remains were found around that time, 6 months later.
6 months later.
Where were those ones found? If you know, where were they found? Do you know?
They were found more so over Estrella.
Yeah.
That's up towards that way.
I know where that is. Sure.
I know. Well, that's a long shot.
Yeah.
My sister or someone was like, you need to call them. I go, what? Come on, they'll call me. And they go, no, you need to call them. I'm like, okay. So I called them, and it's way out of Estrella. I go, I don't know how he would have got that way. I mean, but anything's possible. And
okay. I'll ask you this: being that he had these 3 phones, and we'll get into the phones here in a moment, but he had at least one of those phones with the working phone with him. Did anybody try to call him, try to text him, and any answer? Any go straight to voicemail? Anything? What do you know about that?
It went straight to voicemail. He never responded to texts, and that's not unlike him either, because he will ignore you. He will not answer. He's a very impolite person sometimes, and doesn't think about other people's feelings when we're worried.
Yeah.
However, he always talks to his brother. So
that was the big thing for you. It wasn't so much that he might not have called you back or his grandmother back. It was that he hadn't talked to his brother was the main concern.
Yep.
Okay.
And we all knew it.
Okay. Now, what was missing? We're going to get into this backpack in a little bit, but what were all of the things missing besides Jordan? What else was missing?
Hardly anything. He left things that I knew he wasn't going to be gone for long, because he would have took it.
Okay.
Unless and this stuff too, unless he went out there just to kill himself, then sure, I get it. Then we did go, we did some flyers, and we got some people, all of us got together and climbed the mountain, attempted it, and out of 12 people, 3 people made it up and over, 3 people made it to the mountain, and all the other ones went back. It was a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's tough.
But, it made me feel better. I knew chances were, even if he was up there, we're not going to find him. It's a big mountain.
It's a really desolate area, a lot of square miles up there, rough terrain. You're right. I haven't been up in there, but I've seen it from afar. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just knew that it was more monumental thing to do than anything, but I'm thankful that I had friends that helped me out.
Sure. Did he take his ID with him?
He did. He took his wallet. His wallet was there, and he had a couple IDs, actually. He had a California ID, and he had Washington, and I think all 3. Washington.
Wow.
I don't know how he did that, because maybe one was an ID, maybe one was a driver's license. I'm not sure. But every card was in his wallet.
All right, and they were all gone with him. They haven't been found either?
No, they weren't. They found the backpack.
Okay, we'll get to the backpack in a moment. Okay, so at the time, though, before the backpack, we'll just give it away, the backpack was found, those items were missing. What I'm asking you is when he went missing right there in September of 2019, what else was missing? I realize some of these things were found later, but what actually went missing with him in September? What did he take with him?
Oh, what he had on,
Mm-hmm.
some papers, probably about the baby or whatever.
Okay.
He had his wallet. He had. That's about it. I mean, he didn't have anything but for like a day, like a. I mean, I'm sure I didn't get to see exactly what he had in his backpack because they wouldn't let me. Like, they didn't spread it around for me to look. They said, look in this box and you can't touch anything, and then that's it. And I was like, oh man, that's cool. That's cool. Like, what can I do with that? I mean, they don't get it that if I would have went there and saw things, I might have figured it out.
Maybe.
But the one thing that really hurts my heart is that they found rocks.
All right, well, before we get into that, Anita, let me set this up a little bit. So what you're saying is that he went missing and he had this backpack, he had his wallet, he had this ID, he had these papers, once again, going back to this woman from Washington who seemingly was pregnant with his child. And so he goes missing, but then what you're saying is at some later point that backpack was found, correct?
Correct.
All right, and the police would not give you an exact idea where it was found, would they?
Well, no, they wouldn't. They were being very vague. They said they wouldn't even tell me who actually found it. I found out later that it was a rancher. And I know, and they said that they could see the highway from where the backpack was.
And
so wasn't that in...
And was it in the direction that your mother saw him walking that day, or was it in some other direction?
No, it'd be in the same direction.
It was in the same direction.
Yes. I mean, obviously he did go to the mountains because we went up there and, it didn't seem likely. And then when they found the backpack over there, I would have thought he would have went to Vegas myself. Because he's good at making money that way, and he's very, very, like, thrifty. He doesn't spend money like he wants to, like, very tight one.
Okay. But I have to ask you, being that these searches were done, at least some people went up there, how did, if it was in the general same direction that he was walking, how do you think the searchers missed this backpack for, this backpack, my understanding, it was out there for a year. How do you think that this backpack got missed?
I don't think it was there. I don't think it was just, because it didn't look like it was a year old.
Oh, it didn't?
Not in my eyes. The backpack was a little, like, faded, but it's all in one piece. All the papers were there. All his stuff was there. A bottle of vodka was there. All this stuff was here a year later.
Okay.
We have wind, we have rain.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It just doesn't it doesn't make it. And then after that, I won't go on because then there was like two more fires out that way. A fire and then another person found in a house deceased.
All right. So what you're saying, Anita, is to kind of simplify this, is your opinion is that backpack is found sometime in 2020, and in your opinion, it did not look like it had been out there for a year.
Well, if it did, it was in shade and not a lot of wind to blow things around, and
wasn't faded. That Arizona, Las Vegas sun will fade anything.
But it was a state-issued military backpack, camouflage that his brother gave him, and I don't know. I can't say anything because I don't know, but I know he will fight for that backpack. He was not gonna just like, oh, I lost my backpack and keep walking unless he was like dehydrated or drunk, or not thinking right, or totally lost his mind because he thought he was going to be a dad and he didn't, and he wasn't. And, people snap. Not all these things, but
Sure.
I know that.
We have to point out something that you kind of glossed over. You did say that an empty bottle of vodka was in there.
That's right.
Did you know him? Did you know him to drink that?
I asked the officer, I go, well, he goes, well, we found an empty bottle of vodka. I go, was it high end? Because he doesn't drink anything but high end.
Okay.
I mean, he won't. And I'm like, and he goes, I don't know. I go, well, okay. But I'm sure, whatever. I mean, Jordan was in a state of something that was beyond himself to be just, wandering in the.
Well, we don't want to. We try not to speculate too much on these interviews, Anita. So I think the listeners get the idea of what you're saying.
Thank you so much.
That he goes out. We don't want to get too much into the theories here, but he goes walking off. We know that it's September. We know that it's hot. We know that this area is dangerous, and it's very possible that he did walk off. Although we're going to touch upon a couple other things that maybe make us go in a different direction. All we're trying to establish is that he walks off, and then a year later, even though some searches had been done, this backpack kind of appears, out of nowhere.
Two searches actually.
Yeah.
By the detectives and their crew.
Okay.
So.
All right, but somebody, a rancher, finds it, and on top of everything else, we don't know why this rancher would not find it for a year. If it's on his property, his cattle out there, how was it that if that backpack was there from approximately the time that Jordan went missing, then how did this rancher miss it all that time? We don't know, do we?
No, we don't. Maybe he just moved in recently.
Could be.
Could be. I have no idea. I didn't even know it was a rancher until I went into, they let me come in and see his backpack. And he goes, oh, I think it was a rancher, right? I go, I don't know. That other detective didn't tell me anything. He wouldn't tell me anything, not even, we're still investigating. We don't need you up there. We don't need any interference right now. And we'll get back to you. I'm like,
okay. Now, you said something just for a few seconds before, a few minutes ago, that there were rocks found in the backpack?
Yeah.
Wow. How many?
Well,
how big? How many?
I don't know exactly because, again, they're probably at the bottom of the box. The box is quite large box. Not too large, but I mean large enough for things to be on the bottom, and I didn't see what's on the bottom.
Okay.
But I couldn't, move stuff. And, of course, I was crying.
Yeah.
And I had a person help me and, take pictures. But it's just a box with papers on top, basically, in the backpack. You can see the backpack. And so I was like, I want to be that person that goes in there and says, no. Do this, do that, and, and have legit reasons for them to do it. But I was just like, I couldn't. So I let it go. And then they went out again the second time, and they still didn't find anything. They kept finding little things and calling us, did he wear boxers, these kind of underwear, or did he wear these kind of shoes, or did he? And it's just weird because my sister, my brother-in-law, and I went out towards that direction. I got enough information to generally know 5 blocks from 5 miles up from where I live.
Okay.
And Shannon, my sister, found a pair of pants, and in the dirt. I mean, things happen. Clothes disappear, shoes appear. That's not that uncommon for them to find other
No,
people's
it's not.
clothes.
No, it's true. The wind blows. Who knows? They get those, dust devils out there. I've seen them out there in the desert. They could go by, get somebody's laundry, and just throw everything right out, all through across the desert. That's true. That's true. I've seen them. I've seen that happen. All right. Was one of his other phones left in the bag as well, in the backpack?
Yes.
Okay.
So he had left the phone behind, and he had 2 phones. And then one, his most recent phone was used to.
Yeah, let's we're going to set that up in a second. I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I want to ask you this though. You said that amongst these items in the backpack were these papers regarding this woman in Washington. What does that mean? What were these papers? What was that?
Well, I know that he had a folder, of the pregnancy test when he, when he was there with her,
Yeah.
and whatever mail he might have had or papers that he, they lived together for a minute. So I'm just being just general.
Okay.
Her business and his business.
Yeah.
And I actually did see the pregnancy test results on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was there when it happened,
Okay.
But,
To your all right. So maybe he's carrying that in the backpack. It's weighing on his mind. Maybe that's why he carries it around. I have to admit, it seems a little strange to carry it around in a backpack, but we don't know where he was going. Of course, we don't even know what happened to him. But that paperwork was in the backpack, along with one of the phones, his IDs, his wallet, and what?
Two of his phones.
Two of his phones. Okay, two of his phones, and then his these rocks were in this backpack. A strange array of items were in this backpack. I guess is what I would say. Okay. To your knowledge, did this woman actually have this baby or not?
Apparently, according to a detective here from Kingman, found her, I was able to speak to her, and I said, he told me all this stuff, like, and you believe her? Are you sure? You don't even know her, like, how did you just take her word? And he goes, well, because what she's saying and what you're saying is pretty similar, but she has more details. I go, well.
Anita, is there any proof that this woman ever actually had this baby that Jordan was so worried about?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Even though like you said, the detective looked into this, and what did he or she find?
Well, I just don't believe. I mean, the detective was really giving me a hard time about the name of the city or whatever island it was in Washington, and he goes, that don't even sound like it's a real city. I'm like, sir, I am sure this is correct. And then I called, and made it happen, and I called back and go, oh, I did it, and he's, in his place, and I just want to make sure that you knew that I knew that I gave you the right stuff. And then when he comes back to me and says, well, she said no baby, and that Jordan never came back until, since he left that time.
All right, so there is a possibility. Once again, you're not there. In fact, you don't even know this woman's name, but you knew that
I don't like her. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know that your son was concerned about her. She might have had the baby. She might not have. We're just, it's all really still up in the air. All we know is Jordan seemed very concerned about it.
Well, Jordan wanted, this was his first baby. His brother already has two babies, and he doesn't have one. And, he was, 2 weeks later, she kicks him out and steals his truck, and just it makes things happen for him to go away. Why?
Yeah.
That would bother me, too. I go, but I tried. Like, son, women do that. She was a stripper. You got to remember that. She's young. She's on drugs. You got to remember that. People do weird things for no reason.
Yep.
And that's a lot of reasons for her to be weird. And Jordan, you don't like weird people. I told him that, I really like her. Like, no, you didn't. That's a George talking. Or something, because he said that she's on cocaine, and that's what gets her through her job.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how much he did for tape, but I just know that he used to be no drugs, made fun of people that did drugs, thought less than people that did drugs, including myself. I mean, I'm not an angel, and I am not without. But I just say, Jordan, don't be so judgmental, because you don't know what happens down the road. Yeah. And there he was. So he'd say, nope, not me, Mom. I watch. You'll see. I won't even, not even a trip, not even a second will I do drugs. I'm like, okay.
All right, let's move on probably to the most confusing part. I think everything to this point, of course, this is very sad. We, of course, want Jordan to be found. today, of course, alive somewhere. But probably the most perplexing part about this disappearance, though, happened later. And why don't you talk about this text that your mother, Jordan's grandmother, got sometime after? Do you remember when this was in 2020? Why don't you tell the listeners about that?
I believe it was like not like maybe within 5 months of the backpack
Okay.
finding, and his phone, his current phone, was texting my mom, and my mom has a little like an old phone with a little tiny button. So I'm like, Mom, are you sure it's him? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you still have his number in there? And she goes, Yeah, it's like Nana, and I'm here in New York, and I'm gonna. And he was speaking like I'm gonna do stuff, and she thought that I'm here in New York City with a girl named Ima. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Mom, no, this isn't Jordan. Jordan, that's not Ima, a girl. That's Ima gonna do something. And he was
Mm-hmm.
asking for money and a stuff to get her. He got there, he was doing good, and now he needs to come home. And she goes, absolutely, just call me. You gotta call me. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
tell me where you're at. I gotta hear your voice. I gotta
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, that's good that you said that. But the second call, she's like too anxious. And she's like, well, you have to call first. I'm not going to send you any money or so you just breaking my heart. And, trying to, I go, Mom, you know this person isn't him. He never would speak like that. And she goes, I know. I was just hoping that maybe he would find a sense of moral. And I don't know. It's not going to happen. And he stopped calling.
So when you
I
say
do not,
calling,
I have no
you don't mean calling, you mean texting.
texting, yes.
Okay, we mean texting.
From his
All right.
phone to my mom's phone. And I have no idea how or when anyone would have got that phone from his backpack when it was here in Golden Valley, 6 months before.
All right. So what you're saying is that, just to make this clear for the listeners, is that the phone that had that number had already been gotten,
Right.
but somebody was texting from that number to your mother.
I believe it's the people that were involved. Just, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, let's not get into that. All I'm asking you, Anita, is this text that your mother got was from a number that Jordan used at one time.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm thinking maybe they're just testing the water. Maybe
Well, we just don't know. All we know, the facts are that this is a number that that Jordan had for one of his phones that was already found, correct?
Correct.
All right, and so
Oh, wait, no. That phone was not found.
Oh, okay. All
That
right.
phone, 3 phones. One was here, one was on him, and one was missing, and someone was using it.
All right, and that phone is still missing to this day.
Yes.
All right, so coincidentally, I guess we might say, the number to the phone that is still missing, somebody was texting from that number to your mother trying to get money. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know how would they know if he's missing?
That's right. I agree. I agree. I think Anita, I think you've asked a very, very good question. How would somebody know that Jordan was missing? What are the odds that somebody would be using a missing person's phone number to text his grandmother, try to get money?
Absolutely. And so that makes me feel a little like kind of better that maybe just a little more closer to what really happened and a logical answer and maybe a lead to where whatever I hate to say remains or whatever, but
did you tell the police about this?
Yes.
And what did they say?
They said, well, it's untraceable, and they said they were calling from New York. I go, yeah, but they said they're obviously lying about everything. So they didn't really investigate that any further.
Okay.
But they were aware of their phone. I mean,
Okay, so that phone's missing, and then from that phone, from the number to that phone, um, this text comes saying he's in New York and he needs money.
yes.
And as soon as your mother, his grandmother, wanted to say, "Well, call me. I want to hear your voice and everything," that's when it stopped.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to send you money unless you call me.
Okay,
And
I think that's a good idea.
That's when they said, okay, digs up. So
Okay.
they stopped calling. But I wish I could have known that even if they did track the phone, they would have never been able to find out. I understand how it's hard to track cell phones and people that steal cell phones. It's just never ending.
Well, the other thing even if we were to say, once again, just doing a little theorizing here, is we often know that, I've had the same cell phone number since 2003, but many people, if they change companies, if they change locations, they get a new phone number. Well, that phone number does end up going to somebody else usually. Some, goes from John Smith to Harry Brown. And that makes a lot of sense. That's very possible. That's very common. The tough part to understand is why then, if somebody did get Jordan's phone number, that they're trying to scam your mother. That's the hard part. That's trying to. They wouldn't, and then they probably wouldn't know that either. That's right. They wouldn't know that it was probably Jordan's before a missing person. So yeah, it's a little hard to understand.
And after 6 months of the initial missing person report, a little, I don't know, somebody young from the police department questioned me, like, has anyone heard from him? Is he still missing? Nobody, what's your, I go, nope, same thing. And he goes, well, I heard that you said something about Washington, and that to me says that he's not missing then. He's in Washington. You know he's in Washington. I go, no, sir. I told him that. And just someplace he might have been because he was there before.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I think that's kind of like he's not missing then. I go, I don't know how to argue with that because that's just like normal information. You give all the information you have, and they go on it. And it could be anywhere. But for you, and he goes, I should talk to my boss and see, if he should even be on the missing persons list anymore.
Well, Anita, I think your point, you may not know this, but I certainly know this. So what you're pointing out there is you have to remember that police departments are always looking to close missing persons cases with the flimsiest of evidence. You have to remember that, and that's something you have to continue. Being that Jordan's disappearance is kind of fairly new, you have to remember they're always looking for reasons to close a missing persons case. Don't let them do that. Do not let them do that, because that's essentially what they're trying to do to you. They're trying to say, oh, did you say he's in Washington? Oh, okay, I guess we can tie this up then.
Exactly.
That's what they're trying to do. Don't let them do that.
Well, after that, that's when the body showed up over here with the remains, and the detective came the next day and did everything. I even got my DNA. So everything.
Okay.
Which was very helpful and nice. And they did a really good job considering what they have to do and how many things they have to do a day. They were polite and nice, and I was just praising them in every way I can just to make sure that they remembered me and they remember my son.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to continue to do. But, don't let them walk all over you either. You be nice but firm. You'd always say thank you and please, but be firm with them. And don't let them, try to close this case because you just happen to stay Washington or any other state or city or anything, Las Vegas, don't let that happen.
Yeah, I kind of did for a minute, but then I was like, what? And I told the detective, well, he told me that he's going to take him off, and they go, what? That doesn't make sense. I go, well, lots of things don't make sense, sir, but it happened. And they went out there twice to search, and all the stuff, and nobody.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I should have asked you, what police department is this?
Oh,
Kingman, Arizona. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the same as Tyler Stice's. Okay.
And we don't even have, because it's got to be King because we are lawless. Here, Dolan, Chloride, all of those
I've been to all those
little
places.
towns
Yeah, I know those
are
places.
so lawless. And Dolan Springs, people drop bodies there. They don't even blink. Like, oh, there's another dead body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a little lawless up there in northwest Arizona. A little bit. Little bit. Okay. I asked this of any family member who's been on the program, Anita. How tough has the last 2+ years been?
So, like, I want to just, like, I can't even think. I don't have the words. I just want to say I'm okay, and that I'm not. And I wanted to just stop, like, worrying, and my heart stop breaking, but it don't. And I want to stop crying, like, one day, and then I cry the next day. But, it's just been a little, when things come up in your life, like, you have to carry on. You have to keep going. And I wasn't doing that until, like, something major in my life made me, I have to get a job, or, I have to pay a ticket, like, things like that I've been very, very consumed.
Yeah.
And I want to stop. I can't even stand my own self for acting like a big crybaby. But it's my son, and I'm the only one that's here to look for him.
Yeah.
And it should never happened. But he's such a jerk face. And I call him a jerk face. And I feel like that's just my little, why didn't you tell us? Why did you do this?
Yeah.
But, everyone has a reason, and I'm sure that he's sorry.
Yeah.
And if he's not sorry, I will make him sorry. That's what I say.
Yeah. Do you have it's, and you should know that's, what most of the people have said that have been on file. Not knowing, being confused, and confused on why everything happened, yeah.
I deserve it.
Yeah.
I say I deserve it because, I just didn't take him with it. Like, Mom, if you would have only took me with you when you, like, oh, man, no. Why do you want to say that? Like, he was the only kid that was, like, seriously pissed off at me. And didn't stop being pissed off at me.
Because of what happened back in the early 2000s.
Because his dad left me, and then I had, circumstances.
Yeah.
But, things are things.
Yeah.
But he was really mean to me. And he was mean to me. And then now I laugh about it, like, like try to find the good things and the bad things and like come out like a little even. Not crying too much, not being too happy, not thinking. I'm overthinking myself constantly and not knowing which direction to go or what I should be doing, but I should be doing more. And I just don't have the means to like hire my own person. Dig up holes.
It's everybody, Anita, everybody has that problem. It doesn't matter what class you're in or how much money or anything else. It's usually quite difficult to do that. I'm not saying it's not important. It is, but it's difficult to arrange it. Yeah.
I've been looking into storm tunnels myself under the freeway. I don't know. I just have a feeling because I don't know why, and I know it's probably just I can't be that in tune with him. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just will always.
You do what you can.
I've stopped a million times up this highway and got out myself or with somebody, and we've been under this freeway, this highway.
Yeah, 93, Highway 93.
Those tunnels are little. They start out big and then they get real little, and you have to be like with the spiders and it's. Oh.
How has this affected your parents, his grandparents?
My mom's heartbroken. My mom thinks it's her fault.
Oh. Because she saw him that day?
Well, and that, and plus she told him that he has to get a job or get on some assistance to, pay for his food. Because, we're no one's rich here, and he could at least do that. And he's like, oh, I'm too proud or whatever. I go, Jordan, get a job or go get assistance. You know, it's just basic food. You just have to take care of your food. You don't have to pay bills. You don't have to, you know, do anything. And then he leaves on September 1st. She takes him down there before that. He says he did it, and before she could see if he did it, he leaves that day. Another reason.
Okay, so she has some guilt there.
Yes, lots of guilt. Okay. And over food. That's so ridiculous to make my mom feel worse than she could ever feel just because you walked away, but because of food. That's just not even right. We have food. We have tons of food. My mom goes to every cake sale here from Laughlin. I don't care, you know. It was just the point that he was just like, he needed to get up and do something. And I told my mom to be a little rough with him and do it. And if I was there, no. But anyways, I wasn't, and she did, and he said he did, and he did it. And then he left that day, September 1st.
Do you have a Facebook page, anything set up for Jordan? Well, give it to the listeners. What's the name? Give it to the listeners right now.
It's Stevens Anita, StevenSanita, one word, 3530@gmail.com.
All right, so that's your email if anybody has any information.
I want to thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, well, you're very welcome.
I hope that I can continue being like one of your followers forever.
Yeah.
And whatever you need me to do for whatever reason, you got
well, I think it's going to probably, I would like it to be more of the opposite. I want to know what I can do for you, Anita. You know, all right? Because, you know, we're going to be friends for a long time. This is just the beginning of us knowing each other, okay? Even if Jordan were to be found alive today, you and I are going to continue to be friends, okay?
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Okay. And I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was my January 3rd, 2022 interview with Anita Stevens, mother of Jordan Carvalho. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. I also need to thank her friend Kara, who put me in touch with Anita. I mentioned in the interview that I would be doing a video concerning the important locations for Jordan's case. It is now available for viewing on the Unfound podcast channel on YouTube. Please watch it and give it a thumbs up. There is so much about Jordan's disappearance that seems straightforward. He was in new surroundings, he was shy, he was distraught over the woman and alleged child in Washington. He was known to do drugs once in a while. He often left for days at a time, allegedly hiking in the mountains. All of this paints a picture that Jordan could have harmed himself, or the weather overwhelmed him, or an accident occurred. All viable theories, all logical, all seemingly could fit the facts as we know them about 2.5 years later. We have at least one solved precedent from Unfound's own catalog. Crystal Morrison, who died from the elements in North Carolina. She walked off and never came back. Then she was found by accident many years later. The problem is we have too many disappearances that seem like Jordan's that are unsolved. Thus, we can't learn anything from their resolutions. Chris Sanders, Dal Phillips, Renee LaManna, and many, many others. In addition, the general category of walk-offs can be misleading, depending on the witnesses or lack thereof. It very well could be that the missing person didn't actually walk off at all, and that a witness is lying. However, that's surely not the situation with Jordan's case. Yet, just because Jordan's grandmother saw him walk off does not mean foul play could not have occurred. And that brings us to that text from Jordan's phone. It is surely the monkey wrench that prevents us from quickly coming to a solid
theory. To make sure all of you understand what happened, Jordan had 3 phones. One was left at home. One was found in his backpack when it was discovered. And the 3rd phone is still missing. And the text came from the number connected to that phone. You may ask, is it possible it was some kind of scam? Absolutely. You all know how scams are prevalent in the missing persons community. However, for that to be the situation with Jordan's phone, other than someone actually having his missing phone, it would mean someone found out about Jordan's disappearance. That person then figured out the number to Jordan's missing phone. Then somehow someone programmed his or her own phone to display that number. All in an effort to get money from Jordan's family. Is it possible? It is. But wow, that seems like going through a lot of work on something that has very slim odds of working. And as Anita stated, her family didn't fall for it. In addition, although I've heard about a lot of different types of scams over the past 5 years, I've not heard of one such as this. So, despite Jordan's disappearance being somewhat common given the facts, it may not be. And there may be a lot more to it than just one more thing. I'll leave the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.